Hello everybody, it's Tarun. Welcome to your 16th tutorial in the HTML course. So as I told you in the last tutorial that I'll start with submit and reset buttons here. But before starting them, I'll just want to tell you about one more element, which is data list element. The data list element, which is new in HTML5. Let me just show you. Data list, I'm talking about this element. Okay, and it requires opening and closing tag as well. So it allows the author to provide a drop down menu of suggested values for any type of text input. So it gives the user some shortcuts to select from, but if none are selected, the user can still type in her or his own text. So within the data list element, suggested values are marked up as option elements, and we can use the list attribute in the input element to associate it with the ID of the respective data list. So let me just show you what I am talking about. So here is the example of the data list element. So here I have given a paragraph named education completed. Okay, and I have added a input type which is text, and then I have added a data list to show a drop down menu. Okay, so let me just save it and show it to you in the browser. Okay, so till now you are seeing that there is nothing in the like the drop down menu, but if I move the cursor over the text box, then you can see there is a drop down menu here. Okay, so you can use either of these options, or you can type in your text if your requirement does not meet these options. Okay, so as of this writing, only the Opera browser has implemented the data list element, and other browsers will ignore it and present a simple text input. So, but I have also shown you in the Chrome, because the Chrome I'm using is the latest version. So this was all about the data list element. So now let's start with the submit and reset buttons. There are several different kind of buttons that can be added to web forms. The most fundamental is the submit button. When clicked or tapped, the submit button immediately sends the collected form data to the server for processing, and the reset button returns the form controls to the state they were in the form where it was initially reloaded. So in other words, resetting the form does not simply clear all the fields. So how we'll get to that? Okay, for submit button, you need to just change the type to submit. Okay, and for reset button, you need to just change the type to reset. Okay, both submit and reset buttons are, as I told you, are used with the input element, and as mentioned earlier, because these buttons have specific functions that do not include the entry of data. They are only form control elements that do not require the name attribute. But it is okay if you want to add one, or if you need to add one. Submit and reset buttons are straightforward to use. Just place them in the appropriate place in the form, which is in the most cases at the very end. By default, the submit button displays with the label submit or submit query, and the reset button is labeled reset. So we can change the text on the button using the value attribute. So I'll just show you one example. So here I have input button with type submit, and I have reset button with value start over. So if I save it, now let me show you in the browser. So here you can see that I have two buttons, submit and start over. So submit will submit the data, okay, and start over will reset the form. Okay, you can see that start over has resetted the form. The reset button is not used in the forms as commonly as it used to be. That is because in the earlier form development, not in the earlier, in the nowadays form development, we use JavaScript to check the validity of the form inputs along the way. So the users get feedback as they go along. And at this point, you know enough about form markup to start building the form by yourself. Okay, so I'll just tell you a few more buttons now. There are a handful of custom button elements that are a little off the normal path for beginners, but I'm just now going to tell you them instead of this course being a beginner course. The first button which I'll tell you is image button. Okay, and it goes like this. Let me just show you. Okay, and here we need to type image inside the type. So this type of input control allows you to replace the submit button with an image of your choice. The image will appear but not like a 3D button. Unfortunately, this type of button has accessibility issues, so be sure to include a carefully chosen alternate value, which is ALT. So let me just show you an example. Okay, just wait. So here you can see I have added the source image to be best.jpg, and if the image does not load, it will show us the alternate. So if let's save it and run it in the browser. Okay, so here you can see that whenever I will hover about over this image, then the cursor changes to hand, which means it is an button, and when I have clicked it, you can see the border around it. Okay, so it is now a button with the image inside it. So what if I named the image B and save it, and I have no image in the HTML folder with be.jpg name. So if I refresh it, you can see that the image is not loaded. And if it happens that I forgot to use the source, so and if I go ahead and refresh it, then you can see it shows us the submit button only. Okay, the next button which I am talking about is custom input button. So for this button, we'll use the type button here, and setting the type of input element to button creates a button that can be customized with JavaScript. So it has no predefined function on its own. Unlike submit or reset button, you can just modify it with the JavaScript. So the next type of element which I will tell you is button element. Okay, so what I mean to say is that I am talking about this type of element, and this element is a flexible element for creating custom buttons similar to those created with the input element. The content of the button element is what gets displayed on the button. So this was all about the custom buttons. Okay, so now let's move to the next type of buttons, which are radio and checkbox buttons. Both checkbox and radio buttons make it simple for the visitors to choose from a number of provided options. They are similar in that they function just like little off and on switches that can be toggled by the user and are added using the input element only. But they serve distinct function. However, a form control made up of a collection of radio buttons is appropriate when only one option from the group is permitted. In other words, when there are many options and you want to select only one, such as you are asking the gender for a visitor, and then you will ask for male or female. Okay, then there should be only one option. The user cannot take both. So in that case, we'll use radio buttons. So when the one radio button is on, all the other radio buttons must be off. Okay, And now let's see about checkboxes. When checkboxes are grouped together, however, it is possible to select as many or as few from the group as desired. So this makes them the right choice for list in which more than one selection is okay. So now let's see more about the radio buttons. Radio buttons are added to form using the input element only, okay, in which the type is radio, and the syntax I'll show you just a second. And I have added a name, variable, and value equals to value. Okay, the name attribute is required and plays an important role in building multiple radio inputs into the set. When you give a number of radio button inputs, the same name value, such as is in the following example, which I'll tell you, will create a group of mutually exclusive options. So let me just show you an example. Okay, so this was the syntax for radio button. So let me show you the example. So this is the example where I'm asking how old are you, okay, and I have the radio button with name, age, and different values over it. So if I save it, and now let's see what happens in the browser. So you can see that I can only check one button at a time, which I told you. So notice that all the input elements have the same variable name, age, but their values are different. Because these are radio buttons, only one button can be checked at a time, and therefore only one value will be sent to the server for processing when the form is submitted. So you can decide which button is checked when the form loads by adding the checked attribute to the input element. So here I have added a checked attribute to the first value, which is under 24. Okay, so if I reload the page, then this first element will be checked. So what if I removed it and moved to the third value? So let's see what happens. Okay, then you will get default checked the third button. Okay, so now we'll see checkbox buttons. Checkbox are added using the input element only. Okay, where the type is replaced to checkbox. Okay, as the radio buttons, you can create group of checkboxes by assigning them the same name value. The difference, as we have already noted, is that more than one checkbox may be checked at a time. So the value of every check button will be sent to the server when the form is submitted. So here's an example. Let me just show you the example. Okay, so this is the example. So let me just show you how does it look like. So in this example, I am asking, the form is asking what type of music do you listen to. So you can add punk rock, indie rock, hip hop, rockabilly, or all the four options also. Okay, and here you can see that I have added check to the punk rock and indie rock, so they will be checked by default whenever the form is loaded. Checkboxes don't necessarily need to be used in groups, of course. In any form, a single checkbox can be used to allow visitors to opt in for special promotions. Okay, so this was all from about the buttons from my side in this tutorial. In the next tutorial, I'll start with menus. So thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next tutorial.